Welcome to the Marvel Snap News Bugle. We're going to cover all the latest news in Marvel Snap. And today's headline is all about Loki. Has Loki broken Marvel Snap? Loki, of course, the Season Pass card, which came out on Tuesday. 3 energy, 5 power. On reveal, replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck. Give them -1 cost. I think a lot of players anticipated that this card would be decent, but not meta. However, it's proven to be quite far from the case. We're going to be looking at the data exactly a little bit later on to see just how well Loki is performing. But first, let's just get a sense of what the community is feeling about Loki overall. We have this tweet first from Cozy Gamer. Life as a game designer has to be rough sometimes. A new season pass card. If it's bad, it's outrage. If it's good, it's outrage. Nerf season pass card to make it more balanced equals outrage. So Cozy here talking about the previous couple of months cards where we've had Phoenix Force, for example, which wasn't the most popular of cards, similar with Daken. And then people were quite upset. They were outraged. But now we've got the situation with Loki, similar to Silver Surfer and Zabu, where potentially the card is too good, and then people are getting really annoyed about it. And then, of course, if you make it more balanced by nerfing it, that creates a huge problem. And it really is a big problem. We've seen already with that Zabu and Silver Surfer getting released as such strong cards to then just be nerfed a month or two later. It is almost false advertisement, right? Like players are buying a card and then it gets nerfed shortly afterwards. So it's a really tricky spot for the developers to be in. But how good is Loki? Does it need a nerf? Well, let's see what other players are thinking. KM Best, who is considered one of the best players in the game, has said Loki is broken. Now, I will add, this is a classic content creator phrase, okay, if you're trying to get some retweets and stuff. But I do tend to agree with KM that Loki is seeming very good. So he said you can go Quinjet into Collector, hand fill, so playing cards like Snow Guard, Mirage, Cable, Maria Hill, these kinds of things. Onto Loki on turn 4 or 5 is nearly unbeatable, KM says. Your backup plan is a really good Marvel Snap mid-range deck with Kitty, Angela, and Legion. Nothing else felt close. All games in the top 50 wasn't even snapping well. Gross. So this is the list that KM was playing. He's got Kitty, Pride, Angela. As he mentions, if you don't find Loki, you can just kind of go for that classic Angela Kitty play with Legion. Collector also synergizes nicely with Kitty. And yeah, the buff to Snow Guard, also a humongous buff as well. So this is like kind of the standard looking list, something along these lines. You can see KM Best in the new leaderboard in Infinite rank, which we're going to be getting onto. 62% win rate, 40 net cubes. It's definitely a good win rate, but it's not like obscenely high or anything, right? So again, I think that like this whole like Loki is broken thing is a little bit hyperbole, right? Now, another legend by the name of Specimen, that would be me. Video coming soon on this. I got Agatha to Infinite. Loki Agatha is actually really serious. Like, it's genuinely good. Is it going to be the best Loki deck? Of course it's not. But the idea is that Agatha starts in your hand, which means you only have 11 cards in your deck. That's going to improve the odds of you drawing Loki. But also, it gives you an extra card in your hand to transform with Loki, which is extra points on Collector. And of course, Loki, if you get rid of Agatha, no longer is your Agatha in control. And it's also quite exciting in the mirrors because Agatha is going to be given to your opponent potentially if they Loki. So video coming on that very, very soon. I'm really excited to share that one with you. Hot take on Reddit. The reception to Loki would be fine if they literally didn't give him a location that outright wins him the game on the first day of the season. So, of course, on the first or second day of the season, we get that hot location and it was Triskelon. And I have to say, I think that Marvel Snap should stop doing hot locations on the first week of a season. It's the only real time I play ranked mode, and my goodness, does it... I don't personally enjoy it anymore. When the game first came out, I did. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about that. But it's certainly true that Triskelon is a location which was massively favouring Loki. If you're not familiar, it's the one that adds 3 random cards into your hand. Of course, if you've got a Collector down on the board already, that's +3 on the Collector. But then it's also going to be another +3 on the Collector when you play Loki. And probably the most overpowered thing in these Loki decks, at least what it feels like, is the Collector, who previously has been a very lackluster card since he got nerfed almost a year ago now. Collector used to be one of the best cards in the game back in beta, where it buffed by 2 for every card you added to your hand. But ever since it's just been buffing by 1, it's been pretty lackluster most of the time. But with Loki, it just can go insane, particularly in the mirrors. And I think that's a bit of a problem with Loki. The mirror matchups are very, very, very high rolly and RNG. So, flashbang warning. Oh god, I apologize. We nerfed Quinjet, so it won't make you stones for free. We nerfed Silver Surfer because he was overperforming, even though he was obviously broken on release. We nerfed Zabu because it was overperforming, even though he was obviously broken on release. Here is another obvious broken card that we will nerf later because it will overperform. Now, I have to say, I do disagree with this. I mean, it's a good meme. Zabu was beyond belief broken, like not comparable to Loki in my opinion. Similarly, Silver Surfer was much more obviously very, very good. And it is still really early days with Loki, which we're going to be talking about just in a second. I feel like they're going to nerf Loki to reduce cost by 1, minimum 1 power, when the season is over, and seconded and milked their money from the season pass. Just look at what they did with Galactus, Hitmonkey, and Spider-Ham. Just let the cards be OP to make money, then murder them. It is a problem, I have to say. Like, if you're advertising a season pass card, I really don't like the concept of it getting nerfed shortly afterwards, but maybe they've left themselves no choice. However, not everyone thinks that Loki is going to be quite as powerful, or at least not everyone's jumping to quite strong conclusions. Jeff Hoogland here, Marvel Snap Gamers, talking about Loki being unbeatable after barely 24 hours. We've tried nothing, and we're all out of ideas. And I have to say, I absolutely agree with the Hoogland here, because Loki as a card is so counterable. Just one subtle example there is by me playing an Agatha deck, I can give my opponent Agatha with Loki. Now in practice it's honestly not that good because they play Agatha on turn 5 for 14 points, but there are definitely other decks which we're going to be taking a little look at in a moment, deck ideas like High Evolutionary Lockdown, like maybe Mr. Negative, maybe Bounce decks. Loki is going to be a lot worse against all of these other things. People are playing Loki mirrors and seeing how insane the deck is in a mirror, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be insane. PSA, public servant announcement, High Evolutionary Lockdown feels really powerful against Loki. This is a Reddit post. A Swarm of Loki getting you down. I've been playing High Evolutionary Lockdown to a lot of success in Conquest, and it feels like it shuts down Loki as a really fast early game. Now, I'm actually going to throw out there, I don't know if I agree with this. There's a big reason, because Professor X, if you're playing against Loki and they get your Professor X, they can play Professor X on turn 4. That is very spooky, particularly if they've already got like a collector down and they play the Professor X into the collector lane. Of course, you could try and play around this as a High Evolutionary Lockdown player. You could have like your Sunspot in one, your Nebula in one, and then but it doesn't really sound that good to me personally. However, I do agree with the concept. I definitely think it's going to be solid against Loki, but I think there's going to be better decks there. But I love this concept, really. I think Bounce is one to really explore, because Bounce, you're just going to be giving them lots of cheap cards, and then they potentially could run out of things to play depending on how big their hand is. There's absolutely counters to Loki, and I think we just need to let the meta settle. We've got another flashbang warning coming in. Okay, so this is a nice little graph, nice little meme on Reddit. Why there is Triskelon in 8% of my games. This was me actually yesterday. I didn't even realize there was a hot location. Then you've got the majority of people. Loki to OP, please nerf Collector, Loki Quinjet. And of course, Collector here chilling at 44 power is something that can happen quite frequently in the mirror. There is literally no counter. But then you have like the Jedi Masters like myself with Agatha. Finally hit top 5 on the ladder. They're playing Mr. Negative, Cerebro, and Agatha. I do definitely want to give a shout out to Cerebro. Cerebro decks should be amazing against Loki because you're just giving them a bunch of jank. So that's absolutely a really top contender, in my opinion, to try and counter Loki decks. We've got another one from the Hoogland here. To add a dash of data to my Loki ramblings, Conquest on Untapped Snap is probably our best source of looking at performance. I would agree, although I would also add that I think day 1 or day 2 of the season, you can probably look at the infinite ranks of people between 70 and 100 plus, because people are tryharding, they're trying to get to rank 100, right? In fact, you would possibly argue that it's more tryhard on the ladder at the very first couple days of the season, but nonetheless, let's look at these lists. So there's a collector deck which does play Loki at 60%. There's another collector deck which is playing Loki at 54, 54, 53, and this is not actually that high, right? So I definitely agree with the Hoogland, but we do need to just like chill a little bit before we think everything is completely out of hand. So let's take a quick look then at the ranked data. I do believe this does not include the Triskelon hot location. We're looking at players with a collection level of 3,000 above, ranks between 70 and 100 plus. And these are the best performing decks on the ranked ladder. As you can see, we've got Shuri Kitty, Hela Tribunal. This is probably because it's a very good deck against Loki. So many people have been playing Loki and they've therefore decks which are good against Loki, which Hela is definitely a key example of, because all these cards aren't really doing much for a Loki player, right? But you've suddenly got a Hela. Discard is another one that could be interesting. Like, Loki's just not going to be getting too much value off your discard cards. Now, it says Loki's down in B tier, but actually, if we look here, this collector deck here does, in fact, of course, have the Loki. So, looking at around like a 60% win rate, because this Loki one, I would assume, is including... I don't know exactly how this one's working. It's kind of tricky, but just get a little bit of a ballpark. Like, Loki's good, clearly, but it's not like it's unbeatable, right? That's kind of what the data is suggesting. And particularly if a deck is super duper popular and is shaping the meta, then inevitably there's going to be decks which start coming out which are good into Loki. And I think Hela Tribunal, Cerebro are going to be key examples. Of course, you don't want to play a deck which is good into Loki but bad into other things, so it's about finding that deck which can do a little bit of everything. Now, moving on from the Loki discussion, there has been a lot of other stuff going on in Marvel Snap this week, because there is a new leaderboard system in the Infinite rank, and I have to say, it is an absolute mess, in my opinion. I played around 3 games when I hit Infinite, and then I logged off because this system was so bad. It was just so unintuitive, it felt awful. We're going to talk about that. I think it's great we've got it, by the way. So my friend Dara here got his Smurf account, was ranked number 1 in the world. So Dara kind of explained some more things like in the replies down here, which I'll just kind of paraphrase. This is his second account, which wasn't yet Infinite, but he kind of, it almost bugged out that when he like logged on, he could see his rank. And this means Dara's rank on his Smurf account, on his account, had not changed. So in Marvel Snap, there's always been a hidden MMR score, and your snap points are pretty much that hidden MMR score. It's like a visual way of seeing it available to the player now, which previously this was hidden data. It was possible, I believe, to access it in the game files if you really searched for it. But Dara's account was ranked number 1, despite him not actually having played, because it was a bit of a bug that he got this screen, basically. This tells us that the hidden MMR score has not been reset each season, which is a horrible idea for a ranked mode, because when the season resets, you then want to be trying to get to number 1, but a lot of the snap points are currently based on previous seasons, which is very, very weird. That's particularly problematic because accounts like this, Dara's Smurf account, are very likely to have been playing against a high proportion of bots in the past. What tended to happen previously in Marvel Snap is if you started winning a whole bunch of games, particularly if you're at a lower collection level, which I think it's fair to assume on Dara's Smurf account at points, he would have been playing on a fresh account while being a more experienced player. Therefore, his hidden MMR score would have got very, very high very, very quickly, and therefore the amount of bots he would be playing would dramatically increase. And therefore, it's not surprising that an account like this has the number 1 spot when there isn't an MMR reset. However, that is not the only problem we have with this rank system. That is barely, in fact, the beginning, because my goodness, does it feel bad. So, the little Reddit post here with 0 upvotes. We're giving it some exposure. I won the game and lost 6 ranks. What is happening with the Infinite leaderboard? There's maybe some visual bugs going on, but what tends to happen is, in my experience, I won a game for a cube, and I went from like 1,500 in the world, playing Agatha, by the way, and then it increased. Like, I went down the leaderboard, I went to like 1,600 or something, even though I won. The smaller number, the better, because it's like a ranking. And it's just very, very, very weird as a player to experience, right? Like, I'm playing the game, I won, and I lost rank. Like, that doesn't feel good. So what is happening there? I would imagine what's happening is either more people are getting to Infinite rank for the first time, and therefore they're cutting ahead of you on the leaderboard. Or perhaps what it could be is that there's just other people that are winning 8 cube games. But my expectation and my feeling is that it's going to be that more people are hitting the Infinite rank. So like this thing with Dara, we can see it's clearly something's not quite right with the fact that he was ranked number 1 before even hitting Infinite. So possibly this just needs like a rework. Like either like the leaderboard is set even before you hit Infinite. So then when someone new is joining Infinite, you don't like... They don't jump ahead of you and make you feel like you're losing ranks even when you're winning. And I just wanted to pull this comment out. It's based on 2 things. It made me laugh, this comment. It's based on your skill rating, not how hard you grind. You could see your skill rating before this season by digging through the files, but only after you hit Infinite. This means someone just entering Infinite, even if you've been grinding a month, can instantly be ahead of you. This is also my expectation. And my feeling is with this Dara post here, it was bugged slightly. Like, he maybe had the highest snap points around, but yeah, this is a bit of a weird one. But anyway, yeah. And then point 2, I lied. There is no point 1. Everything else is explained. Let's look at Spyro's tweaks. I've been rambling on a bit about that last bit. After playing exclusively ranked post rank 100 today, so Spyro hit rank 100 very early, and then has been playing ranked at rank 100 plus with the new leaderboard. There's a lot to be said about the new system, some cool things, but some things I'd like to see changed. First off, let's start with a positive. This gives players somewhat a reason to play Infinite after achieving Infinite. Agreed, huge. In the past, getting to Infinite just felt like a checkmark to cross off a list. Being able to see how you're doing versus others is a nice way to track your improvement and progress as a player. Now let's talk about some negatives. First of all, the game matches you on a placement based off previous seasons, even if you've not played in months. Some players will place very high, while others much lower depending on how much they have placed in the past. This seems very unintuitive to me and also erodes the competitive integrity of the ladder. Another issue is there seems to be a lot of bugs showing incorrect MMR gains and losses, where it may show that you gain MMR for a loss and lose MMR for a win very frequently. And lastly, no rewards as of yet for climbing the ranks for finishing above certain thresholds, which means that ultimately, besides personal motivation and bragging rights, in the end there isn't really much point to it all. Hopefully this will be addressed in the future. Another positive is there seems to be no more bots past rank 100, which feels great. Agreed. Okay, so overall, positive that we've got the rank system, but it is a big, hot dumpster fire of a mess. Another thing that made me laugh with these memes about Jeff, I did my waiting, 12 years of it for Jeff, because Jeff is in the Spotlight caches finally this week. This is a reminder that the new system is an absolute joke. I hate it. Like, Jeff was supposed to be a Series 3 free card by now, and yet it's still just pretty much feels pretty unattainable. I don't know why Jeff the Land Shark is a must-have card, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. I liked this. I've always kind of been of the opinion that Jeff is pretty overrated. It is like a better Nightcrawler. Of course, it's a great card, but yeah, this one just made me chuckle. Squirrel Girl, Squirrel Token, the first token. We've got a whole bunch more data mines, which have come out. If you want to see my thoughts on all of these cards, which are coming in the month of October, then you can check out my video. It's going to be here. And finally, there was a Marvel Snap Forbes article where Marvel Snap becomes the top grossing digital card game, beating Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. So Marvel Snap is a mobile, I mean, we all know this. It's been downloaded 22 million times since October, including 7.4 million installs in its first month. Since then, it has earned $189 million in revenue and far outpaces the earnings of its biggest competitors, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Master Duel, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, with a combined 55.2 million in earnings, Magic the Gathering Arena with 19.6 million, and Hearthstone with 18.6. Now, what I want to add to this is, while that is an awful lot of money, I do also want to point out that Marvel Snap pays an absolute obscene amount on marketing. If you look at all of their marketing strategies, like when the game first came out, there was Samuel L. Jackson in an advert. You've also got a whole bunch of creator outreach that Marvel Snap do. For example, when the Twitch drops came out, Marvel Snap was the top streamed game on Twitch because there were so many massive Twitch streamers who had sponsored streams. They also sponsor frequently a lot of Marvel Snap creators. And, oh mate, it's Little Sims, one of my favorite rappers. There's a lot of adverts on this site, but at least they've got a cool one. And yeah, that's pretty much the roundup of news for this week in Marvel Snap. I'm going to try and do these more often. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Hopefully you did, and give it a like, and see you soon. Cool, bye.